What's up, y'all? Welcome to another video. Today we are talking ammunition, and I'm using the 9mm round as my example just because it's the most common round out there right now for EDC, and it's the most common round in my house. It's either 9mm or 45, and it's 98% 9mm. So I've gone to Dick's Academy, what's the other one? Bass Pro, and I've seen this countless of times. People standing in the aisle, looking at packaging, reading the back of it. They have no idea what they're looking at, and I've helped quite a few people choose what type of ammo they needed because they just had no idea what it meant. So this is just meant to simplify that whole thing when you read the box of ammo, what you're looking at and what to pay attention to. So more often than not, the way I break it down is what you're going to see on the packaging, which is what I want to explain today. So I like to separate uh, bullets into two parts, the outside and the inside. On the outside is how it's constructed and the type of bullet that it is. On the inside is the weight, what's inside of it, and any other extra things they may put, as pressure is our example here, pressure. And that's essentially is what you're looking at when you read one of these boxes. So here you see it says 9mm Luger plus P, 124 grain, bonded jacket, hollow point, and all these other ones. Some brands have proprietary names and all that, but they essentially all have a base meaning of what it's supposed to do. So this one says it's a V crown for SIG, and it's a 9mm 124 grain JHP, which is a jacketed hollow point. So anytime you read one of these boxes, you'll be able to know exactly what the hell they are talking about. So we start from left to right. So with the outside of the round, the bullet itself, you're gonna see that some boxes will say bonded or non-bonded, some will not, and you have to Google if it's non-bonded or bonded. For most people, it doesn't really matter, but if you really care for what it means, this one is a bonded jacketed hollow point. Bonded and non-bonded, the difference is basically on how it's constructed. When it comes to bonded bullets, the bonded bullet, it has a jacket, so the outer metal layer that is chemically or basically mechanically sometimes bonded together, fused together, and it's fused together to the core, so the inner part of the bullet. For a non-bonded round, they don't do that, so it's not fused together. It separates upon impact. So the bonding process really just ensures that the jacket and the core stay together upon impact. So usually they want to use bonded rounds if you want rounds to still perform after hitting a wall, a windshield, a door, whatever. We talk about penetration. So a lot of cops use bonded rounds because obviously they deal with a lot of situations that they may have to shoot through something, and they want the bullet to still perform after impact. So that's the biggest difference between the two. Um, like I said, most brands are going to tell you if it's bonded or non-bonded, but if you don't know, just Google it. That's the first part. Secondly is the type of round that it is. So full metal jacket, HP, which is hollow point, JHP, jacketed hollow point. You'll see some that says FTX, like these critical defense one that says FTX. It's like a flex tech technology that's patented, that's their own thing. But essentially, it's a hollow point. So it's either you're running full metal jacket or you're running some type of hollow point, whether it's jacketed or not, or it has some type of insert in the tip like these critical defense rounds have. For the decision of which one you need to go to is if you're training and you just need training rounds, you're just going to the range, you're more likely running full metal jacket rounds. And the difference between a full metal jacket and a hollow point round is, number one, the hollow points are hollow, as you can see here, and full metal jacket rounds are not designed to expand on impact. Hollow points are. So can you die from getting shot with a full metal jacket? Hell yeah. But that's essentially what the biggest difference are. There's other differences, but this is the biggest differences, and we're just trying to keep this very simple. More often than not, when you're running full metal jacket rounds, you're training. That's what they're good for. Hollow points and jacketed hollow points, the difference is one is jacketed, one is not. We're not going to go into the itty gritty of that. On average, you're either running a hollow point or a jacketed hollow point when it comes to self-defense. And really, for most people, it comes down to price. I'm not even gonna lie. Average person, the difference between them carrying jacketed hollow points and hollow points comes down to price. When it comes to performance, there is a performance difference. I like to run jacketed hollow points, but on average, that's usually what you'll see. I do know a lot of people who run FTX rounds, but they're super expensive, and they're not just expensive for no reason. The process of creating this type of round costs a little bit more money, which is why it's more expensive. There's a lot of data out there that may prove that this is the most ideal and the most efficient self-defense round because of its penetration abilities, about basically what it does. So you'd have to go on Critical Defense's Hornady's website and check it out. But because of the insert that they put in there, essentially it allows the bullet to go through clothing and stuff better, and then still expand on impact the way it's supposed to, and keep performance essentially. But the average person is either running, like I said, hollow points or jacketed hollow points. That's usually what you'll need. That's the outside. When we go to the inside of the bullet, and on the box where you're looking at a box of rounds, you'll see that there's a weight usually. So here it says 124. On average, you'll see 115, 124, 135, 147. We're talking pistol rounds for 9mm. And sometimes you may see 100. So I've ran 100 grain before, but that's usually the performance difference between 100 and 115 is not that high. It's usually just a recoil thing, just because of we don't even need to go into details on that. It's not that much of a difference. On average, this is what you're going to see. Now, the difference between 115, 124, 135, 147 when it comes to performance, like what the average person may need, like, so which one do you need? And I'm trying to keep it super simple. Now, there's a lot of nuance and details to this, but I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. For 115, you get higher velocity, less recoil, less penetration. For 124, you get balanced velocity, moderate recoil, balanced penetration. Now, 135 is a sweet spot between 124 and 147. And for 147, you get lower velocity, more recoil, but deeper penetration. So 135 is a sweet spot for that. And the only time I really ran 135s is when I lived in Philly and we had rough winters and a lot of people were wearing a lot of layers. So I wanted that extra weight, extra power, because of those layers. And I also did a plus B on top of that, again, for that extra energy, extra power. So increased performance essentially. But the average person is going to run either 115 or 124. That's what you're going to see on average, the average Joe. You're going to either need 115 or 124. You can even break it down to like the type of setting. So for like an urban setting, you're easily going to see 115 or 124, possibly a plus B to minimize over penetration risks. And then in a rural setting, you'll most likely see 124 or 147, possibly plus B or plus B plus for deeper penetration, basically to stop threats effectively. For home defense, the average, again, 115, 124, plus B for the balance of stopping power without the excessive recoil. And that's usually on average what you'll see. What do you need to run? I tell people, as far as the weight goes, it really depends on the gun that you're running, the way some guns are constructed. Some guns prefer certain weights other than others. So when you're researching your gun, research what type of weight for the bullet works best for your gun. Now, this last part does not apply usually for all ammunition, because not all ammunition is plus P or plus P plus. If you do see a plus B, all this plus stuff means is that when they created the bullet, they added extra pressure to the round itself when they put it together. So plus P, you get an extra, I think it's like 10%. And then the plus P plus, it's more than 10%, but I couldn't find a consensus as far as of a number. Every manufacturer does it differently, but just know that it's more than the plus P. So with the pluses and stuff, with plus P, you get higher pressure than standard ammunition, obviously, usually about 10%, like I said. And then you get increased pressure in higher velocity and energy. So that can basically improve stopping power and the expansion of the hollow points that we spoke about earlier. Now for recoil, the plus P, it does add more recoil. So some users may see that it's a little bit tougher to shoot a gun that you're running an ammunition that is plus P. Same thing with the plus P plus, is just an increase of everything we spoke about in plus P. So that's essentially what you're looking at when you look at any different box of ammunition. So 9mm Luger, 115 grain, GDHP, so it's a hollow point, 115 is the grain. There is no pluses, so it's not plus P or anything like that. And it doesn't say if it's it does say right here, it says bonding, so I'm guessing this is bonded. See, I'm not sure, I have to look it up. I used to run a lot of this gold dot stuff. This gold dot stuff is great, but then I started using all this stuff and then you kind of just forget. But it'll tell you when you look up anything you need to know. Sometimes you don't even have to worry about this. Sometimes you do if you don't know what you're looking at. But essentially, that's all that it means. Now, on top of that, when picking out your ammunition, you need to be wary of different other scenarios. So if you have a comped gun, like my OZ9 here, if your gun is comped, if you have ports like this CZ here, or the barrel length, or if you're running suppressed, you know, you may need to run not may need to, a lot of people run 147 subsonic rounds because they're running their gun suppressed. Now, I'm not going to go into the science of this, all that velocity and energy and all that stuff and suppressors, but when you do the research, just find out what is what within this formula and you should be just fine. And that, I think that's the best way to explain the ammunition when you look at it in the aisle. So most people, let's say you have a Glock, some people say that Glocks come from the factory oversprung. You just figure out, you shoot your gun, take out ammunition, full metal jacket, and then find out that what the standard weight for that gun is, for whatever gun that you bought. And then you shoot that training round, see how your gun performs. I like to get 115, 124, and 135 full metal jacket rounds for the carry gun that I'm going to carry, and then run 9mm training rounds to do that, see how it performs, and then from there decide if I need plus P rounds. And focusing on bonded or non-bonded to me is more for people that are more advanced or care more about performance. For example, I have friends who swear by their HST federal rounds. Those are non-bonded, and because when you run non-bonded rounds, you get less penetration, maximum expansion, which is what you want out of a defensive round. So you'll see that in critical defense, you'll see it in HST rounds. But when you run bonded, you get more penetration, a little bit less expansion, and you'll see that with critical duty. So depending on what you're running it for is what you may decide to do. But if you just randomly pick one or the other, I don't think it matters as much as some of us may think that it does. So for example, for give you a perfect example, this Zev OZ9C, the defensive round that I run through this gun here is this Winchester Defender 9mm 124 grain plus P. And the reason being is because basically what's going on with the Zev here is compensated, and I'm using a DPM recoil reduction system spring that uses a lighter spring. And because I'm using the lighter spring, because the gun is comped, the 124 grain plus P is the sweet spot, and it runs flawlessly. It's the best. It runs the best out of any other type of round. Now I could go into the science of it, but essentially that's what works for this gun. For my CZ here, and both of these are cleared too, by the way. My CZ here, it runs 124 grain, no plus P, just the regular 124 grain rounds, just fine. And then I can even run the 115 grain ones, and it runs it just fine. But I like to run the 115 plus Ps, and flawless. It runs flawlessly, and that's just what runs the best out of this particular CZ and what I've done to it. Everybody's gun is different. I've upgraded this gun, so again, works. You have to figure out what works best for your gun at the range. You get different types of rounds, run them through, and see what works. Now, some people may say that, oh, a gun needs to come from the factory being able to spit out every different type of round. I disagree with that. Guns are made in different ways, and some guns run best on a particular type of ammunition, and some guns run best on other types of ammunition. It's kind of like saying a perfect car that comes out needs to be able to run on any type of oil, and it just doesn't work that way. So you have to optimize to whatever gun that you have. Your base is what your manufacturer says it is, and then you go from there, because obviously people change stuff within their gun and then you tweak from there. But for most people, whatever the base is that your manufacturer says it is, you should be just fine. And now you actually know what the terms mean when you're in the aisle looking to buy bullets, essentially. So I hope that helped. I hope that explained it a little bit better. Usually this helps. Let me know in the comment section if it did or if it didn't. Let me know in the comment section if I missed anything, or if anything, if somebody's watching this, if they need to know anything else. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. And I also, where is it? Wanted to mention about these critical defense rounds. There's some debate out there that this is the most efficient round when it comes to self-defense because of the technology. So the hollow point, and then I forget what the material that they put in there, but whatever it is that they put in there provides better penetration, and you still get the same performance, the expansion that you want out of a defense round. But from what I've seen from the videos I've seen online, there isn't that much big of a performance when it comes to these FTX rounds versus a regular jacketed hollow point or a hollow point. So you have to be careful out there when you're looking at ammunition for some companies, because they like to change the names about certain things, and a lot of it is marketing. So just be careful about what is what. So like, for example, HASTs is just a patented thing that Federal does for their non-bonded ammunition. Essentially, that's all that HAST means. Essentially, FTX is not a industry standard thing. This is a patent acronym that Critical Defense is using to describe what their round is doing. But there's always a base of, is it non-bonded, bonded, is it a hollow point, jacketed hollow point, what weight is it, do you have extra pressure or no? That's the base. So hope that helped. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll see you guys on the next one. Deuces.